Hello there. My name is Joel Barker. I'm the Communications Officer for the Multnomah County Democrats. Thank you so much for joining us for this forum for the candidates for HD 46. And the Multnomah County Democrats are very happy to be able to put together these forums in this difficult time so that you have a chance as voters to get to know the candidates. And so the candidates have an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. These forums are being put together by the people in the district, not by the county party. I'm really just here to enable them to do that. And if there are other elections that you're interested in having a forum for, please feel free to contact us, and I would love to help you put together a forum for those elections as well. Ballots are out, so perhaps you're sitting there looking at your ballot, hovering over these two names, trying to figure out which one to vote for, and now is your chance. I am going to introduce one of the two people who are putting this together, GM Garcia, and she can introduce the candidates.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us in the House District 46 Forum. Tonight we'll be hearing from our two candidates, Pham and Jeff Cogen. I'm joined with our Assistant District Leader, Tom Fox-Sellers, and he'll kick us off in getting some opening statements from both of our candidates. Thanks again for being here.
Hi everyone. Welcome to this evening's broadcast. This is very exciting. First, we're going to start with opening statements. So I'd like to have the start with Pham.
Hi everyone, my name is Pham, and I am the daughter of Vietnamese refugees. I am the wife of an immigrant, and I'm a longtime resident in the J District in the heart of House District 46. I have been a community organizer here for many years, first working at APANO, the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon, and at OPAL Environmental Justice Oregon. And with these organizations, as well as a broad coalition, we were able to build the power to win the Portland Clean Energy Fund, which is raising $50 million a year for renewable energy and energy efficiency programs, prioritizing jobs and job training for low-income communities and communities of color. Leading the Portland Clean Energy Fund taught me that when we come together and unite across labor and environmentalists and communities of color and neighborhood associations and small businesses, we can actually win against some of the biggest corporations in the world. So my community asked me to run because we want to bring this intersectional vision of racial justice and climate justice and economic justice to Salem. And my community asked me to run because House District 46, which has the J District, one of the highest concentrations of Asians and Pacific Islanders in the state, has never had an Asian American representative. I'm running because I want to be able to bring the voices of immigrant communities, marginalized communities that have been left out of the political process for far too long. And we've shown that we have the vision and the leadership. And I want to bring that vision, that policy vision and leadership to Salem. We have a decade to take bold steps to stop irreversible harm to our planet. And I want to help bring that same model that we passed with the Portland Clean Energy Fund to the state through passing an Oregon Green New Deal. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Con. Next up is Jeff Cogen.
Oh, Jeff, you're muted.
Is this better? The perspectives and experience I bring to this role are unique and needed. I spent years being a private business person, running a nonprofit, and managing and running a government. I ran the small business Portland Pretzel Company for 5 years. For 4 years, I ran a nonprofit, Impact Northwest. At the state of Oregon, some grassroots community solutions are still blocked by powerful special interests, like when Republicans left after the climate change bill. I have experience to combat that. I was chief of staff for City Commissioner Dan Saltzman for 6 years. After that, I got elected to Multnomah County Commission and Multnomah County Chair. I got a lot of stuff done. I addressed long-term community needs. We built a new East County Courthouse, a new Sellwood Bridge, and North Portland Library. And I built community partnerships too. We built the Gateway Domestic Violence Center and the Crisis Assessment and Treatment Center, which deals with mentally ill people. And those were community partnerships. There's a need to bring this kind of collaborative, solutions-oriented approach to the legislature. One of the reasons that I'm running, 3 years ago, I had a stroke. It happened, it was an accident. It happened at the bumper car rides in Seaside. Another bumper car hit me, and my head whiplashed, and that was tough. I had a long road to recovery, but with speech therapy, I got better. But I got lucky. I had short-term and long-term disability insurance. Not too many people have that. They should. We should not make getting better from your speech, from your health crisis, dependent on you being lucky. The Jewish culture has a saying, it's called tikkun olam. It means all people should heal and repair the earth. And we have to take risks to do that. And that's why I'm running for House District 46. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeff. So we're going to start with a series of questions, and these questions were put together by the constituents and the PCPs of House District 46. So thank you to everyone who helped participate with that. It was led by Jonathan Pulvers, and he had a whole team of people working with him, and we'll get a chance to thank every one of those people after this meeting. So I think that the first thing we want to start with is, and this goes to you, Jeff, how important will the 2020 Multnomah County Democratic platform be in shaping your approach as a legislature?
Well, it's important because I've seen the platform and I know the platform, and it's going to be important. Healthcare, we have to have healthcare for all people, and we have to deal with climate change. But it's going to be important to me, and that's going to be the case. It's going to really be important to me.
All right, thank you for that. And let's have Khanh, same question. How does the 2020 Multnomah County Democratic platform potentially shape you and your approach as being a legislator?
This year, 2021, that is going to be a pivotal legislative session where we're going to have to make critical decisions about the direction of our state in one of the most difficult economic recessions of our lifetime since the Great Depression. And, the Democratic platform, which centers healthcare and housing as basic human rights, the protection of the environment, and equity and justice are core to my own platform. And I want to ensure that as legislators are making these tough decisions about what kind of investments we need to make, how we're going to raise the revenue for those investments, we need to make sure that we have legislators who are going to advocate and make sure that equity and justice are centered as we make tough decisions about which social programs potentially might need to be cut. We need legislators who are going to fight for our communities and make sure that corporations who have always been trying to get out of paying their fair share are really held accountable in this crisis, and they don't use it as a chance to renege on their responsibilities to the communities that they're serving. Particularly in this moment, we need to be investing in healthcare and education. So those are core parts of my platform, as well as the Multnomah County Democrats platform.
All right, thank you. And it makes me wonder, are you able to see my questions? Because this next question kind of plays a lot into what you were just saying about it being a difficult session coming up. And the next question has to do, and it goes to you, Khanh, it has to do with the fact Republicans in the last two sessions, including the last special session that just ended, had a difficult time showing up for work. And so the question to you is, like, as a person that's in the majority party, how do you propose holding the minority party accountable for their actions?
I think it's critical. A healthy democracy is a critical part of my platform, and the Republican walkout is hugely undermining to democracy in Oregon. I think we need to pass several reforms. We need to pass quorum reform to ensure that, like other states, like the majority of other states, that we just need a simple majority in order to hold session. I also think that it's important that we enact penalties on people who aren't doing their job. If you have a certain number of unexcused absences, we need to make sure that those legislators are not allowed to run for office again, because if they're not doing their job, they don't deserve the privilege to run and represent and work for the people of Oregon. Those are two ways that I would address the Republican walkouts and ensure that we have legislators who are actually going to do their job in this time when, now more than ever, we have the public health at stake, we have our economy at stake, people are losing their health insurance, they're worried about being losing their homes because of this economic crisis. We need legislators who are there 100% to be able to fight for the communities they serve.
All right, thank you. Jeff, the same question to you about holding the legislators in the minority party to account.
Well, I would go out to where they live and meet with them and see if we can resolve it. But I don't think we can resolve it. But I will go meet with them and see if we can resolve it. But if they don't do that, I want quorum reform, because I think maybe even I wanted, if they do it, but I want quorum reform because they cannot just get away with walking out. And they've walked out 3 times, and that's just not good. But I want quorum reform and penalties for them when they don't show up. And that's the simple truth.
All right, thank you. We're going to switch gears a little bit here to the next question, Jeff, and this goes to you. What will you do to raise revenue so that we can adequately fund necessary public services like education, healthcare, housing, and PERS?
Well, I would start by having the state cut their costs. When I was at Multnomah County, we had the Great Recession, and we cut costs at Multnomah County, and we had programs that were not affected. We cut costs at Multnomah County. Our managers had to strike a longer span of control. We had Microsoft, I got Google. So that's one thing. But when we have to raise revenue, I would look at the prisons first, because the prisons, they have an awful lot of people in there who are victims of the drug war. And I don't think they should be in there. And we will evaluate all the people in the prisoners, and we will let all people who have been victimized by the drug war out.
Great, thank you. Khanh, same question to you. Do you need me to repeat it, or do you know? So we're talking about raising the revenue so we can adequately fund necessary public services like education, healthcare, housing, and PERS.
Yeah, this is a critical time where I have to acknowledge that we are going to face a devastating revenue shortfall that is likely to surpass the 2008 Great Recession. We're going to have to make difficult decisions, and as a legislator, I am ready to make those tough choices. And one of the ways, though, that we can ensure that we are protecting critical social services is by raising revenue. I think tax reform is key, and we need to definitely make sure that we are not delaying the corporate activities tax, which funds the Student Success Act. It's already going to be lower revenue than expected, and we're facing cuts, so we cannot delay more. I would also look at tapping into Oregon's Rainy Day Fund, which is $2.5 billion that we desperately need. This is the moment to use that fund. And we need to eliminate the clicker. We need to reform our tax system to hold corporations accountable. We know that we could raise $376 million if we just closed loopholes on offshore tax avoidance by corporations. I would also look at maximizing the funding that we can get from the federal government, including some of their emergency measures like the CARES Act, which includes a municipal lending facility opened up by the Federal Reserve. So those are all ways that I think we need to expand revenue so that we can protect essential services like healthcare and education. I would also use these tax credits and subsidies to make sure that we're investing in a clean energy future and creating jobs at this time, tens of thousands of jobs for Oregonians to build a more just and sustainable economy.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been very insightful so far. Thank you to both candidates. I'm going to pass the mic to GM, who is going to ask the next set of questions, and I'll be back in a little bit.
Well, as Tom mentioned, each time you answer a question, it's as if you're anticipating the next one. Our next question does have to do with revenue. How would you approach services to vulnerable populations, assuming no new revenue? And I'm going to ask you to go first, Khanh, if you will. You've already, like I said, started to answer the question, but expand a little more on how you would approach services to vulnerable populations, assuming no new revenue.
I think that it's really important that when we tackle social problems, we need to make sure that the people most directly impacted are at the table co-creating those programs with us. As a community organizer, that's a central tenet, and I would continue to hold that principle as a legislator. I look to pilot programs like the Portland Street Response, which was co-created with Street Roots, with their homeless vendor community, as well as with the city of Portland, spearheaded by City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty's office, to come up with a way that we can actually bring the people who are experiencing homelessness to the table when considering the policies that impact their community. So that was, it's actually currently being piloted in House District 46. It's a way in which quality of life calls that come up where people are dealing with mental health or encampments. We don't need the police to come. And in talking deeply to the homeless community, we're able to find out there's ways in which we can actually refer them to social services. We can have fire departments, very experienced community professionals who know how to deal with these problems without involving the police. That's one example of how it doesn't necessarily mean increased money, it actually means less money in some cases, but we're actually coming up with creative solutions together.
Thank you. Same question, Jeff. Would you like me to repeat it? Oh, your mic.
Yes, I would.
Okay. How would you approach services to vulnerable populations, assuming no new revenue?
Well, I would look to cut the state government in targeted ways. When I was at the county, we cut the county in targeted ways. We cut the county, we got rid of a warehouse, and that saved us $2 million. We didn't give the employees a raise for 2 years, and that saved $20 million a year. So that's one thing I would do. And the other thing that I would do is gather all the people together and see what they want to get rid of or what they want to keep. And I would get rid of what they wanted to get rid of, and I would keep what they wanted to keep. And that's the simple truth.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with you, Jeff. Simple question, it's a yes/no question, but keep in mind you have 90 seconds, so give us your thoughts. Do you support a Green New Deal? We'll start with Jeff.
Yes, I do support it. Is this am I on? Okay. I support a Green New Deal because climate change is a catastrophe for all humans and animals. So a Green New Deal, it has a number of meanings to that, but I want to get 100% clean energy for Oregon, 100% clean energy. And I want to have electric cars and electric buses on our roads. And I want to have all things that are currently powered by fossil fuels, I want to have them powered by electricity. And so I support that Green New Deal.
Thank you. Same question for Khanh. Tell us your thoughts about supporting a Green New Deal.
An Oregon Green New Deal is central to my platform. I'm centering climate and environmental justice because, like I said earlier, we have a decade to take bold steps to stop irreversible harm to our planet and to our people. And I'm running because I want to be able to look my daughter Maya in the eye and tell her that in 2020, I did everything I could to ensure a planet and a world where she can thrive. So I have been working on developing an Oregon Green New Deal platform with communities across the state for the last year. And we've developed a draft vision that includes a transition to 100% renewable energy that's community controlled, transportation justice, healthy breathable air, regenerative agriculture and forestry, and direct investments and funding for communities already experiencing a changing climate. These are ways that we can both address the public health needs of our communities, as well as create needed jobs for Oregonians in this time of economic crisis. I think that an Oregon Green New Deal offers us a chance to enact a just recovery that reaches all communities in Oregon. And I think that we can look to the models like the Portland Clean Energy Fund that really center the communities most impacted, frontline communities, which in the state of Oregon includes rural communities, low-income communities, and communities of color. These are the communities that are going to be hardest hit, are currently the hardest hit by climate change. And we need to make sure that in the Oregon Green New Deal that we're making sure that they're centered and making sure that they're not hurt disproportionately and that they're enjoying the benefits of this necessary transition to a renewable economy.
Thank you, Khanh. Next question. Oregon declares itself a sanctuary state. What additional action, if any, should the state legislature take to combat the Trump administration's immigration policy? We'll start with you, Khanh.
I think that as I mentioned, I was raised by refugee parents, and my husband is an immigrant from Mexico, so this issue hits very close to home. I think we need to make sure that we are enforcing our sanctuary state status, and we are defending against any attacks, the continuing attacks from right-wing anti-immigrant forces who are trying to undermine our sanctuary state status through measures like Measure 105. I was part of the coalition that helped fight back against anti-immigrant measures like Measure 105. And I think as a state legislator, we need I would use my full powers to make sure that we are ensuring that our state agencies are not cooperating with ICE. And as well, I think we need to look at data. There's ways in which recent news events have shown that the data that is shared, we need to enact more privacy protections to ensure that our DMV records are not shared in ways that can undermine the state's ability to protect our immigrant community.
Thank you, Khanh. Same question, Jeff. With Oregon declaring itself a sanctuary state, are there additional actions that we should take? And if so, what are they at the state legislature to combat Trump's current immigration policy?
Yes, Oregon's a sanctuary state and Portland's a sanctuary city, and those are remarkable. But we have to go further than that, because in Multnomah County, the sheriff has to report to ICE if they have any clients in the jails. And I don't think we should do that. I think that we should refuse to do that. And so that's one thing we can do. Our sheriffs don't have to report to ICE when they have immigrants in the jail, and they do now. But other than that, I think that we have to fight attempts to remove it, like our sanctuary status. We're going to have to fight those. But other than that, we're progressive, and we're very progressive, and I think we should be progressive.
Thank you. We're going to turn it over to Tom again.
All right, thank you, GM. Jeff, this question is for you.
Okay.
What will you do as a legislator to assume the basic needs of essential workers are met, including housing, food, healthcare, and transportation, especially when the COVID-19 crisis is over?
Well, I think that we have to have the essential workers and have a new deal for them. I think that, I think that essential workers have to have a new deal for those people. I mean, essential workers are healthcare workers, police, firefighters, bus drivers, grocery store workers. And we have to have a new deal for them, which means higher minimum wages. They get paid sick leave. They get time off for going to work when they have time off for that. So we have to do that. We have to step up from our current status. We have to do something better.
All right, thank you. Khanh, same question to you.
Yes, as a legislator, dealing with this COVID crisis is a key priority in January when, well, it will be a key priority in January as well as now. I trust that as we look into a special session that we need to be prioritizing our COVID response and particularly the needs of our essential workers. I think that our, what we need to do for the COVID crisis is interlinked with how to protect our essential workers. We need to invest in adequate personal protective equipment, PPE, and we need to make sure that there's adequate testing so that we can start to pinpoint where there's outbreaks and also start to figure out how we can reopen the economy. I think that what essential workers need are what all workers need. I would fight for healthcare access for everyone. We need universal healthcare as well as we need paid sick leave for every single worker. We've already addressed it for many workers, for frontline healthcare workers, but we have farm workers who often don't have access to paid leave. And that's why we're seeing the disproportionate impacts in, for example, the Latinx community is disproportionately impacted by COVID because they are doing essential work of growing our food and bringing it to our homes and our markets, and they're not given adequate protection. We need to make sure that everyone has adequate personal protective equipment and their full workers' rights to protect their safety on the job as their work is enabling all of us to survive.
All right, thank you. So Khanh, the next question is for you to address first. As a legislator, you will work with several jurisdictions across the state. What jurisdictions or elected officials do you look forward to working with to accomplish your legislative priorities?
I look forward to working with both regional government, which I think plays a key role in helping us to advance particular environmental and climate actions, as well as waste and other services, waste management. I think that they have been real models for centering equity in the way in which they enact their planning, and I look forward to working with them as a key partner. I also look to state agencies like the Department of Education, as well as Health and Human Services, to make sure that we can partner, particularly in this COVID crisis, that we are partnering to make sure that we are protecting public health while also protecting the small businesses and workers who are being impacted by our public health efforts.
All right, thank you. Jeff, same question to you. And do you need me to repeat that for you?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I look forward to working with local governments, the city and the county and every other city in the county in this region. They will have people in them that will enlighten me as to certain issues, and I will have things in me that will enlighten them as to certain issues. But I will also like to work with my colleagues and my legislative colleagues, my senatorial colleagues, the Secretary of State and the governor. Those are people that I would like to work with too. But I would like to work with local governments most of all.
All right, thank you. We are just cruising right along. We're at the halfway point, and we have about 5 or 6 more questions. So thank you all for, doing your best to maintain the time. Appreciate that a lot. Jeff, this question is to you. Do you support allowing cities to enact rent control?
I do support allowing cities to enact rent control. The state government enacted a statewide rent control, but it's 7% plus the percentage of inflation. And I think cities should be able to do more rent control than that. Maybe 3 to 5% as an annual basis. But 7% is not particularly good.
All right, thank you. Pham, do you support rent control?
I absolutely support rent control, and I think we do need to strengthen rent control in order to stabilize our families, particularly in this time of crisis. The current level allows de facto evictions, even if de facto evictions through essentially 10% rent increases. In this time, we are experiencing a crisis of displacement. In my own neighborhood, the J District, we've seen many of the immigrant communities and other communities that are marginalized are having to make really tough decisions and move their kids out of school because of rent increases. And so I think that's one of my top priorities as a legislator is tenant protections through rent stabilization. And as well as building more affordable housing. We need to increase the supply of affordable housing, particularly for low income and extremely low income Oregonians. And we need to look at what's driving this affordable housing crisis and displacement holistically to figure out all the different economic levers that we can use to address the housing crisis. So some of the levers could include tax and revenue reform, as well as reforming the mortgage interest tax deduction. I think there's a lot of ways that we can actually generate some revenue to further invest in housing that our region needed before this COVID crisis, but now needs more than ever.
All right, thank you. GM, I'm going to pass it to you for the last 4 questions we have.
Great. Okay, in light of the COVID crisis, what new policies or resources should the state bring to bear to assist people struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues? And we'll give that one to Jeff first.
So I think that IP 44, which is a substance abuse relief fund, is a great starting place. I think if that passes, that's going to have marijuana taxes funded, and it's going to be, I think, maybe $100 million a year. And I think that is a great starting point. But other than that, I think we need to invest in addiction, because we don't invest in addiction. We were the 49th of 50 states that has addiction controlled substances controlled. We have to move up from that. We have to get into the top tier, and that requires revenue. And I believe that we can have revenue. We have like the tax on millionaires or a real estate transfer tax. That is something that is really tangible that can provide for addiction support, and that's tangible. So I think that we should do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Pham, in light of the COVID crisis, what new policies or resources should the state bring to bear for people struggling with mental health or addiction issues?
Absolutely. Our system lacks adequate support for people who have mental health and addiction issues, and we need to raise the revenue so that we can get off from the rock bottom in the country in terms of funding for these services and really provide the support that Oregonians need. Again, it goes back to revenue reform. We need to make our tax system more equitable, and that means holding corporations accountable and making sure that corporations and the wealthiest individuals are paying their fair share. I mentioned earlier reforming the mortgage interest tax deduction or closing loopholes on offshore tax avoidance by corporations. These are all ways that we can start to raise the revenue needed to provide the needed social services, whether it's healthcare, housing, education, and addiction and mental health services.
Thank you. And we'll stay with you, Khanh. What could the state legislator do to encourage, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Let me start over. What could the state legislature do to encourage or facilitate the construction of additional affordable housing? Pham.
It does feel like, so like I mentioned, I think that we need to look at all these different revenue sources, and at the heart is our tax system is so inequitable. It favors the wealthiest. The mortgage interest tax deduction is one example in which the wealthiest households get the biggest tax break compared to the poorest. So we need to reform the mortgage interest tax deduction. We've seen a situation where in the 1970s, our corporations were paying 18.7%, 18.5% of our budget. And now they make up about a third of that. They're only paying in about 6.7% of our budget. And that reflects a fundamental withdrawal of needed social funds. And we've seen that in our ability to fund affordable housing. So for me, I would, I think tax reform and particularly for corporations and the wealthiest individuals is the many levers that we can push to ensure that we have adequate funding for affordable housing.
Thank you, Khanh. And we're going to stay with you to start off on the next question. Do you support the Rose Quarter Freeway expansion? And what, if any, further action should the state legislature take on this item?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. But did Jeff get a chance to answer the second question?
I'm so sorry, Jeff. I'm nervous. Jeff, thank you. If you could answer about affordable housing, what could we do to encourage or facilitate construction of affordable housing? And again, I apologize.
That's fine. I think that we should do revenue reform, but I have three things in particular I want to have revenue reform. I want to have houses that we can deduct as many houses as we own. I think I own just one house, but I think wealthy people own 3 or 4 houses. We should just have it be one house, okay? Next, real estate transfer taxes. And that is a natural thing to go with constructing affordable housing. And they were banned by the real estate industry, but we have to, propose to, take that ban off. And we have to do something else too. I think we have to get an Oregon tax which goes to millionaires. And that's, not that many people in this state, but the tax on millionaires could generate $200 to $300 million a year. And that's something that we don't have now, and we have to do it soon.
Thank you. And Jeff, I will offer you the opportunity to be the first one to answer the next question if you would like. Do you support the Rose Quarter Freeway expansion? And what, if any, further action should the state legislature take on this item?
I don't support the Rose Quarter expansion as it's currently stated. I think that the Albina Vision should be allowed to go there, and that means that they don't have to. I think that the underpass should be strengthened, and they should build buildings on top of the underpass. And that's the first thing I need. But that's not a climate friendly situation. And we have to have all highway funds be climate friendly. And that does not meet that. And I think that's going to be the first thing. They have to do a climate friendly, and I don't think they should just even do that. Particularly, I think that we should do other things other than that.
Same question, Pham.
I do not support the I-5 Rose Quarter expansion as somebody who, as I said, I feel very acutely the timeline that we have to move off of fossil fuels in the next 10 years completely by 2050, and expanding freeways and solidifying our investments in fossil fuel infrastructure is not the way to go about it. As a legislator, I think I would call on our Oregon Transportation Commission to make sure that we're we're holding our votes and their debates about this initiative in a public venue so that the public can actually weigh in on this, given recent local and city mandates around climate change. I also think that the Oregon Department of Transportation needs to conduct a full environmental impact statement based on those recent state and climate mandates. Those are two actions that I would take as a state legislator with respect to this project.
Okay, thank you very much. If I'm not mistaken, this is our last question before we listen to closing statements. And so why don't we start with you, Jeff? The last question has to do with Uber and Lyft. Bear with me. Do you support financial regulation of Lyft and Uber setting minimum pay and maximum charge for riders?
Absolutely. I really support that. I mean, I think that the fact that Uber and Lyft drivers are contractors, not employees, is a fundamental flaw. I think that they should be employees of Uber and Lyft. And that has to be the first thing. And I think that they have to have minimum pay, and that is a terrific thing. Yeah, I do support that.
Same question, Pham.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, of course. Do you support regulation of Uber and Lyft in ways that regulate or set minimum pay for drivers and maximum charges for riders?
Got it. I definitely support regulation of Uber and Lyft. I think they're an example of corporations that are coming into our city and using our public infrastructure that our tax dollars have gone towards, and they are not paying their fair share to support the city. And we're seeing it in the ways in which they are actually going to the state level to try to undermine any future. They've actually passed, or they're trying to pass legislation that will preempt any local jurisdictions from regulating their activities and passing taxes. My organization, Opal, was one of the organizations that was fighting back against that legislation. So we've seen their behavior, and it's so important that we enact strong regulations on companies like Uber and Lyft to ensure that workers are getting adequate pay, that they need to be treated as with the full rights of employees and not as independent contractors. And we also need to limit the profits by making sure that some of the charges that they're making are at least being limited.
Thank you so much. And I believe we are now ready for closing statements. And we will begin with Pham. And just a reminder, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Sorry, hold on 1 second. In this time, we need a legislative representative like me more than ever. I come from communities that have been left out of the democratic process for too long, and I am committed to making sure that the people who are directly impacted, not only by this crisis, but by the system that has left so many people behind, even during times of economic gains. We need to make sure that our response to the economic devastation caused by this pandemic doesn't leave working families, particularly communities of color, behind. The J District, which is in the geographic heart of House District 46, is a place where I've lived and worked for so many years. It has one of the most diverse census tracts in the state, with a high Asian and Pacific Islander population, but we have never had an Asian person represent us in Salem. Representation matters, particularly now, and we need a voice at the table as our state decides how we're going to survive this crisis and what type of future we're going to build. I will bring not only my voice, but our communities of the people who I've worked with for years making change in our neighborhoods to participate in these pivotal conversations. We've already shown our vision and leadership by winning the Portland Clean Energy Fund, which is investing in millions into a clean energy future to create thousands of jobs by holding corporations accountable. I want to bring that same vision and leadership to the state level to pass an Oregon Green New Deal. I believe that a better Oregon is possible, and I ask for your support to help make it happen.
Thank you, Pham. And now a closing statement from candidate Jeff Cogen.
The perspectives and experience I bring to this role are unique and needed. I've spent years running a private business, running a nonprofit, and managing a government, and that experience matters. When I ran the private business, the Portland Pretzel Company, we made sure that everyone had a living wage, they got health insurance, and that matters. When I ran Impact Northwest, we made sure that all of the people, there was 200 people who worked for Impact Northwest, and we made sure that everyone had a living wage, they had health insurance, they got retirement benefits. That matters. And when I ran the county government, we made sure that everyone who worked at the county got a living wage, they got health insurance, and they got retirement benefits, and that matters. And it's especially in the COVID-19 crisis. I've run a lot of businesses, and I cut costs in those businesses. I didn't cut programs in those businesses. I took over Impact Northwest, and it was almost a couple of months from going out of business. And I cut costs at Impact Northwest, and I left it in the spring profitable. And at Multnomah County, we were broke. We cut budgets for the 4 years that I was there. We cut budgets big time. We cut budgets for $30 or $40 million. And we didn't cut programs, we cut budgets. And that's what I will bring to the legislature, cutting budgets, not programs. So vote for me.
I just want to say thank you to both of our candidates and to our Assistant District Leader, Tom Fox-Sellers, who helped me moderate this. And thank you to all of our viewers, but it really takes a lot of courage to run for office. So you both have really demonstrated some civic leadership. We thank you for taking the time tonight. And now I think I'll turn it over to our Communications Director from the Multnomah Democrats, Joel Barker.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much to the candidates, to Tom and GM. All of you put a lot of effort into this, as well as several other members of the precinct committee, several other precinct committee persons from the district, including Jonathan Pulvers. Tom, perhaps you can list off these more effectively than I.
I can.
Oh yeah, GM, thank you.
Please
Lisa Morrison, our House District Leader, had helped delegate and make sure all the right people are in the same room. And we also had some assistance from Jason Trombley, and like I said, getting all the constituents to turn in their answers and turn in their questions and synthesize those in ways that would address the needs of all of our voters. So there was a lot of people behind what happened today, and we thank them for their involvement.
Thank you. The Multnomah County Democrats tagline is "We Empower," and so that effort is exactly our mission, to put things like this together so that you voters have the ability to meet these candidates and make good decisions. We've put together another tool for that, which we're extremely proud of and are shouting from the rooftops. It's the video voters pamphlet, in which you can see all of the candidates, many of which have provided responses to our platform, which is the values of this county party, a response in a survey form to that, and also personalized videos directed towards voters in Multnomah County. You can get to that at multdemsvote.com. We just recently added two interesting things to that are at request. One, this is the most complicated ballot I've ever filled out, and we've been getting a lot of calls about that. I actually have to respond to some voicemails after we get off here. And so there's an FAQ on where the presidents are and what a PCP form is, et cetera, on there. We also have some people who are curious about becoming a precinct committee person so that you can be invited to be active in this way. And so there's an FAQ on how to with the help of 2 other people in your district, become a write-in PCP candidate. Join GM, Tom, and I in this whirlwind of fun. So go to multdems.vote.com for all of that information. In addition, this COVID crisis created created so many problems in the world, and it's terrible to emphasize just one, but every year we put together the Selfie Celebration, which is the key fundraiser for the Multnomah County Democrats, which funds the work that we do. And that was, of course, canceled. So we are going to be next week putting together a selfie celebration online. And there's going to be some auction items and also some videos. One of the hosts here will be featured in a fantastic video receiving an award and describing the work that we've done with racial diversity, or excuse me, racial inclusivity, which we're extremely proud of that hard work. You could get over your guilt right now and go to multdems.org/donate and contribute to the party to help us move forward into this very, very important year. Once again, I want to thank everybody who's been a part of this. I want to emphasize that if there's a forum that you want to have happen, I'm getting kind of good at operating these from the back end, and I don't want to get rusty. So if there's something that you want to make happen in these conversations, please reach out to us and we can enable that. And with that, I'm going to end this meeting and say goodbye to everybody.
Joel, let's make sure we remind people that ballots are due May 19th.
That's an excellent idea. Thank you, Tom.
So
Hey, Tom, when are ballots due?
They're due May 19th, and you can mail them now without postage, which is fantastic.
But you need to mail it by the 14th if you want it to be received by the 9th.
Thank you for that. Yeah, definitely mail it by the 14th. Otherwise, they got the white drop boxes still a couple places around town. I know the McDonald's in Hollywood, and there's one Pioneer Square, and the third one I know about is at the county elections office.
Yeah, on Morrison and 12th. Yes, I personally like it when you tag Multnomah County Democrats in a photo of you putting it into the box. It makes me feel good.
All right.
What were you saying,
Joel, would you please tell our viewers how they can view this forum if they weren't able to catch it live or they'd like to share it with others?
And I just said that I was getting good at this, but clearly I need all of your help. You can use the same link on YouTube to watch this at any time. So let your neighbors know that they can watch this on YouTube Live on our channel. And a great bonus to that is that the replay will have closed captioning on it. We're not able to do that dynamically, but we are able to do that to the recording thanks to magical elves inside of the Google. You guys let me know if anything else I've forgotten. Okay. Thank you all so much and have a lovely evening.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.